You are listening to the Paul Drockton radio program. This is Paul Drockton. I'm your host. We have a special guest tonight, and we're going to talk about the Senator Nancy Schaefer's mysterious murder-suicide. And we'll go ahead and get right to it. I'm going to let our guest introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself. Hello?
Hello?
Yes. How are you? You're on the air.
This is Dan Gonzalez. Good. How are you?
Good, Dan. So, Dan, let's talk a little bit about Senator Schaefer. You and I spoke a bit on the phone. Can you tell people what your role is and how you know her so well and some of the things that we talked about?
Well, I actually wish I would have known her better than what I did have the opportunity to do. But I first contacted, and I'd be happy to do that, by the way. I first contacted Nancy Schaefer. I'm the chairman of the Constitution Party of Florida.
You're the chairman of the Constitution Party of Florida. Okay.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I have as you may know, an internet TV program called American Politics 101 on WAFS.TV. And so what I do is I want to investigate things that are happening in our country and, crimes being committed by our government or unjust laws that are being implemented, things of that nature, violations of our rights. So I received, as the chairman of the Constitution Party, I received many phone calls down here in Florida from very distraught parents who had their children taken from them by CPS, Child Protective Services. And by the way, I'm just using CPS as a general term because in different states they're named different things.
Right.
But basically that's what it encompasses, the Child Protective Services within the state.
Might be better to kind of talk about what they do.
Well, they're supposed to protect children. But what they really do, and there probably are some cases where they do protect some children, but what's been occurring is that these parents were calling me and telling me how their children were kidnapped from them by CPS. And I have to tell you that at first I thought to myself, this can't be real. I mean, these people are probably drug addicts or drunks or there's so many people that don't take care of their children. We see it all the time. But I just didn't believe it, really. But I kept receiving these phone calls. And finally I received a phone call from a gentleman in Pinellas County. And I had another friend that I had also worked with in protesting the Nancy Schaefer murder down in over in Pinellas County. Of course, everyone knows how they starved her and hydrated her to death, and they wouldn't even do that to an animal. It would be illegal. But I met another woman there who was an activist and we were all there, talking and praying and trying to get the police to actually quit protecting, allowing Terry Schaefer to be murdered. And we would, talk to them, and they said, well, we're just doing our job. And we said, don't you know that's not an excuse? I mean, don't you remember the Nuremberg trials? And these police would look at us like, what's the Nuremberg trials? They didn't even know what the Nuremberg trials were.
That's crazy.
It was shocking.
It's interesting you bring that up because, I think in terms, I just wrote about this, and that's the, basically the Nazis' implementation of, their, where they went in and they murdered retarded children, individuals that were disabled, blind individuals that had epilepsy, senior citizens that were no longer able to work. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, that's right. It was all under the guise of eugenics, by the way. And by the way, that eugenics, Hitler got his idea for the master race and eugenics through the American Eugenics organizations. Very interesting. Edwin Black, a very famous author, wrote a book called War Against the Weak. And it's a great book for any of your audience who have never read anything concerning eugenics and genetics. You need to get that book and read it. It's called War Against the Weak. But what we did was I started to hear other people talking about this, and this woman's name was Mari Fernandez, and she was telling me how her daughter had been taken from her by the courts. And so, I knew her to be a sincere person, so I started to warm up to the idea that maybe there was some injustice being done here. Well, I received a phone call from a gentleman named Greg, and I'll tell you, it broke my heart when the government, CPS, came in and kidnapped 3 of his children from him and his wife, 3 daughters, okay? Took them away, and then, of course, and what they did was they put them in foster care homes, took them from their parents, put them in foster care homes, and we're talking about the CPS will take these children from you if you have, for the most absurd reasons, like dirty dishes in the sink, or if you're homeschooling your children, or if you're teaching them too much religion. I mean, they really actually use these excuses.
That's crazy.
Here's the thing. They have complete immunity and complete police power. They can come in even without a judge's order. They can come into your home and they can steal your children without a police order, and they can use the police to do it. The sheriffs will, of course, they listen, they back them up. So, of course, when they come to your door, they usually have sheriffs there with you, and, of course, they have guns on, so you're afraid that, here's the police, they have guns, what are you going to do? And they come in and they say, we're your children, we have a report that you hit your child and we're taking your children from you. They don't have to do anything to be accountable to anyone.
We saw a situation like this in Utah where the parents just picked up and they moved out of state. I mean, would you advise people to do that in Florida?
Oh, you mean move out of Florida?
Yeah, just leave. If you have any inclination at all that they're coming in with that kind of a thing, just
are you kidding me? Well, I'm not going to say what other people should do. I'm not going to say that because already, I'm sure I'm already in the crosshairs because of how I'm trying to, I had a young woman on my program the other day by the name of Sheridan who worked real closely with Nancy and was also a victim herself and of CPS kidnapping her child. And, CPS actually, how this all started with her was that she took her daughter to the hospital because her daughter was crying and she was having problems. Took her daughter to the hospital, and the doctor said, Sheridan, your daughter has been raped. And she's like, what? She's like, your daughter has been raped. And she said, you're out of your mind. And they took her out of that hospital and went to another hospital, and the next doctor said the same thing. Your daughter has been sexually molested and raped.
Wow.
And her daughter said that her dad did it. And so Sheridan, of course, didn't want to believe this, but she couldn't ignore 2 doctors telling her the same thing. So then,
Dan, we're going to go ahead and take a break. Dan, the question I've got for you at this point is, okay, so you've got this little girl that was raped?
Yeah.
And she was raped is what it sounds like.
Right. Sheridan's daughter was raped by her father, yes. Which would be Sheridan's husband, ex-husband.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And what occurred was, so apparently what Sharon did was she called the authorities, of course, and reported it, and they came after her and said, well, you're a bad mother. And she said, what are you talking about? They said, well, you're the one that allowed this to happen, and there's no proof that it was the father. So they took the little girl away, the one daughter that was raped, and gave her to the father.
Oh,
and
gosh.
This is quite often what happens in CPS, is that they take the accuser and the person who is calling them for help, and they take the children away from them and give it to the one who's the abuser. Now, again, not in every case. I'm sure there are. We all know that there are some cases where women will go and use that as an excuse that, the father's abusing the kids so they can get custody. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about documented cases where it's absolutely proven that, like this, in this case, 2 different doctors said the little girl had been raped. And so what happened was, this is how Sheridan got in touch with Nancy Schaefer. Senator Nancy Schaefer and started to get involved with her. And Nancy helped her out in her case, and then they became very close, and Sheridan started working with her. And actually, 5 days before Nancy Schaefer was found murdered, they had just finished a documentary. And the documentary was all about CPS and the theft of children, sex rings, where they sell children into prostitution. They actually ship children out of country to other lands, other nations, and sell these children to people. They actually sell children to pedophiles in other countries. This is a real problem in our country, and I'll tell you, I'm getting into it now full steam ahead because I can't just turn my back on this.
You got an ally here, just so you know that.
Well, you know something, God bless you for that, because there are a lot of people that feel the same way. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Franklin Cover-Up.
Yes.
But I would suggest for anyone who wants to know what's really going on in our society right now, that the newspapers aren't talking about it, the politicians certainly won't talk about this. No one in government will talk about this. In fact, I'm going to have a gentleman on my program tomorrow night that did a movie, a documentary, and he's coming through with a full-length documentary about children who die while in custody of CPS. How many children are murdered while in the custody of Child Protective Services. And he was telling me about in New Jersey, like, for instance, New Jersey passed a law where, instead of revealing more about what's going on with these children, they're passing laws that cover up what's going on with these children. In other words, you can't go in and you can't find out where a child's been. There's no accountability. These kids are just missing. He was telling
Dan, just to cut in, you can link on my website, Dead Man Musings. There's a link there for the Franklin cover-up. Just to cut in here, one of the things that I have, explained through my website is that we're dealing with literally an organization that these people they're Satanists. I mean, they worship Lucifer, and these perverted sex practices and these wanton and senseless murders and these child sex rings, they all tie into this criminal organization that is at the very top of our society. And they're 1% of the population. We're 99% of the population. We should be able to shut these people down, don't you think?
Well, the problem is, you would think that we'd be able to, but the problem is they hold the high ground as far as politically, as far as law enforcement, or as far as running our country or running things. These people are top CEOs. They're top politicians, Republicans and Democrats. And then don't kid yourself, a lot of these top Republican politicians are involved in this.
Of course.
And they're just because everyone knows Barney Frank is a homosexual doesn't mean he's the only one that's doing this. Okay?
Right.
Or I'm not saying that he is doing this, but in other words, what I'm saying is he wouldn't be the only one likely to do this. There are politicians that are...
We'll give you a nice retraction on that one. He's not we wouldn't... Don't think just because he's gay, he's the only person
right,
possible.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. That just because he's gay, he's not the one sexually abusing young boys, okay?
Yeah, we don't know what he's doing. But one thing I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that we have a program that works, and it's going on in Scotland right now. And that's with the Holly Greig scandal. This is a little girl with Down syndrome that was brutally raped by her father, her brother, and the sex ring. And right now, this is literally turning into a whole-scale revolution. And it started with this program and with David Icke's program. So there is hope, my friend. And we'll talk more about that when we come back. You are listening to the Paul Drockton radio program, and we've got Dan on the line with us from the Florida Constitution Party, and we are talking right now about Senator Nancy Schaefer. And for those of you who have not been following the story, Senator Schaefer and her husband basically were suicided. I mean, that's the best way to explain this. I'm expressing my opinion here, and I'm going to tell you this looks like this is a typical cover-up. She was state senator in Georgia, and what ended up happening is that she was working on this documentary, correct, Dan?
That's correct.
And what ended up happening is that now, first it cost her Senate seat, and we all know how easy it is to control elections with this electronic voting. And after this election, she apparently just kept pursuing her course, and they killed her. Is what